On today's podcast, we are going to talk about limiting the negativity in your life, and I'm going to give you 5 tips that you can use starting today to limit the negativity in your life.
Welcome to Lift Your Future, a podcast that teaches you coping skills through stories, methods, and proven techniques to improve relationships and outcomes in your personal and professional life. I'm Nicole Winkler, a licensed therapist and executive coach. On this podcast, we'll share relatable life experiences designed to help you grow. I will provide easy, practical ways to develop thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to impact your life, both personally and professionally. My goal is simple: to help you lift your future.
Welcome back to Lift Your Future. Today, we're going to talk about negativity and how you can mitigate negativity in your life. And that goes from anything with the people in your life to the news you consume and to social media or any other outlets. Our brains are very malleable. So when we take in any information, it doesn't necessarily filter it. Like, this is helpful for my productivity, or this is not helpful for my productivity. Our brain just takes in information. That's what it's designed to do. So today I want to talk about how we can filter out some of that negativity, and I guess what we're hoping to get to with what we're consuming. So the first point I wanted to talk about is, we've had so much heaviness in our news and in our lives the past couple of years with COVID and then the war in Ukraine, even the Academy Awards. We've had a lot of negativity. We've had a lot of heavy stuff that we've been dealing with, and we really haven't been able to escape it. So it is on the TV when I go to the gym in the morning. The news stations are all on, and they have closed captioning on. So even when I can't hear it, I can still read it. And so I make it a point not to look at the TVs when I go to the gym in the morning. It is on the radio. It is, if you don't have ad-free listening for streaming, it's in there as well. The shows and the things that we consume all have messages in them, and our subconscious mind takes in everything, and it doesn't know what is right or wrong. I know that a good friend of mine had watched a lot of the news for the election in 2020, was very immersed in the news for that. And I listened to them. And then afterwards, they went on a month-long hiatus from any news. And I said, I think that's probably the best thing you could do. And so they came back from that month-long hiatus and said, you know what? My life is so much more satisfying without having to listen to anything about politics or anything about the news, because I know I have one vote. I cast my vote. I am not going to change anybody's mind by getting into arguments on social media about it or by consuming more and more news. And so that was, pretty profound for me. And because every time I talked to them, they said, oh my gosh, did you see what so-and-so said or did? And it didn't matter which side it was on. And I said, no, I didn't. I actually don't know. And it's not something I need to consume every day because I'm afraid of where that will take me. And so I was thinking about that person, and I had said, tell me about what it was like for you to drive to work in the morning. What did you listen to? So I said, well, I would listen to this person, or I'd listen to that person on a podcast or on the radio. And then I get to work and I said, well, were you pretty fired up by it? Oh yeah, some days, depending on what came out, I would be really fired up by it. And so you started your day already with a rush of adrenaline or frustration. And so how do you think that impacted how you talk to your employees? How do you think that impacted how you talk to your colleagues? And even your problem-solving abilities? Because when we're in our emotional state of mind, we're not in our prefrontal cortex, which is the front of our brain that solves problems, that is more logical, that knows how to overcome emotional reasoning. And so they said, well, wow, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that. And, even just, speaking to scrolling on social media, I was talking actually to my podcast producer, Matt, and he had brought it up to me in a way that I hadn't really thought about it before. But he said, when people scroll, when people get on social media, they do it to either scroll, post, or engage others. And so I really got to thinking about that. And I was like, gosh, that's right. So even if you don't post on social media, but you are on social media, and let's be honest, I want you to be really honest with yourself. On average, people spend 2 to 3 hours a day on social media. How much time do you spend on social media? And I just want you to be honest with yourself. And what are you consuming? What is the algorithm feeding you? Aside from your friends and the people that you follow, what is the algorithm? Because that's what it's really designed for, is to hook you. If you haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, I highly encourage you to watch that. But it goes into the detail about how they created these platforms to hook us and to keep us scrolling and to keep us clicking and keep us engaged. But, are you on to scroll? And if you're on to scroll, what information are you taking in? What's your brain getting from all of that? Are you on there to post? And what are your posts primarily? Are they positive? Are they uplifting? Are they funny? Are they trying to change people's minds? And are they persuasive? Those are different kinds of posts and different kinds of engagement. And that was, I guess, my next question was, what type of engagement are you looking to get from people when you do post? My Instagram feed is all business awareness, success 101. They've learned my algorithm that I unfollow anything that's not productive for me because I just don't like it. Now, I will say though, with that being said, if I talk about camping or something like that, there seems to be, if I talk about it at any point during the day, there seems to be an ad for some sort of a camping gear, which is really creepy if you think about it. But that's the world that we live in. So I guess I wanted to give you today about 5 techniques to help change your perspective and really filter in more of those positive things. Because when we get overcome by negativity, it shows up in our life in other ways. And so not that you can't listen to the news or read the news, but it's really helpful that this is tip 1. It's really helpful if you wait at least 24 hours before you access that news story, so you know that it's been fact checked and that it's not just commentary disguised as news. We want to make sure that the information we're taking in is fact checked. Also, NPR is a good reference. It's generally facts and not so much opinions that are being discussed and information that's being given. Fox News, CNN, they are paid by someone. And those are usually on one side or the other. And it doesn't matter to me what anybody's belief is about either of those sides, but I think it's important to know, what am I consuming? And if I'm thinking that a whole other half of the population or 40% of the population are horrible and evil people, that's probably something to explore and look into in yourself. So that's the very first tip that I have for you. I also thought that this was really interesting. My daughter came home last week. She had a homework assignment, and the assignment was to write a persuasive paper. And she's in 3rd grade, so this isn't a huge paper, but it was their writing assignment, end of the year writing assignment that they got graded on and gets sent to the state to be reviewed and all of that. So I asked her, what did you write about? And she said, well, the teacher said that we could, write about lots of various things, but I chose to write about something that would challenge me. I found that interesting. So I said, well, what did you write about? And she said, why we should have more homework. And she said, I did that because I knew that it would be more challenging for me to come up with reasons why we should have more homework. And I had to have 3 different paragraphs explaining why we should have more homework. And then my conclusion, along with the introduction as well. So 5 paragraphs. And so reading through her paper was really interesting. So it reminded me that if we take a different perspective to something, if we think about it from the exact opposite, how would I feel? What would I think if I were in the opposite shoes or in another person's perspective? That could be a really good coping skill as well. Well, if I were that person, what would I do? How would I think? And how would I even present it? I don't have to believe it, but how would I present it? To give us a little more robust understanding and to give our brain kind of that exercise as well. I can think about this from a different point of view. I I also have a client this year who at the beginning of the year said one of my New Year's resolutions is to limit my association with negativity. I said, okay, I mean, that's a great New Year's resolution. What does that mean for you? And she came up with a pretty detailed plan that included friends, family members, work colleagues, family that she lives with, news, social media, kind of the gamut. And she said, okay, if I spend 10 minutes on my phone on social media every day, I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. I said, okay, are you going to do that in the morning, at night? Are you going to split the time up? Is it going to be 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, your lunch hour? So she really set a plan for when she was going to use social media, and only for 10 minutes. Then she also said, I need to stop answering the phone every time somebody calls, one of my friends or one of my family members calls, because what I find is I get sucked into conversations while I want to be there for them. I get distracted from what it was I was working on that was productive, and then there went an hour of my day. And if that happens twice in a day, that's 2 hours out of my day. So what I do is I send a text message when they're calling. I will call you back, between the hours of what I think she did, like 4 and 6 or 5 and 7 tonight. And then she also will say, I have a couple other people I need to call, so I need to wrap this up in about 20 minutes. So she sets the expectation when she gets on the phone call at a time that's convenient for her. And she said that has really, really helped the consumption of just everybody else's stuff, which for her was distracting her from achieving her goals and being as productive as she wanted to be. So the second tip I have for you to avoid consuming as much negativity is to turn off your notifications. Turn off your notifications. I know that can be hard, but then you are in control of what you look at when you look at it. That's important for what you consume. My phone will pop up sometimes. I don't know why. It must be because of Google searches that I do. And I have a Google phone. So it'll just pop up some random news story or headline about something that I don't care about, but I swipe it away. I understand that headlines are written to bait you, clickbait. And so I swipe it away. And if I want to know something, I'll usually look it up. But some of them are very enticing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did look up something about that. And it's not anything that's adding value to my life or adding any sort of productivity to my life. The third tip I have for you is setting limits in your settings. Now we have these awesome smartphones that are computers in our hand, but we often abuse them. And what I mean by that is we don't really control ourselves as well as we think we do. So an exercise to see how that goes is at the end of the week, you can pull up your use history, how much time you've spent on your phone, in what apps you've spent how much time. And I would say most of you will be pretty floored. I feel like I'm pretty self-aware, but when I look at that report at the end of the week, I am oftentimes very surprised how much time I spend where. So setting those limits and those timers, it sounds silly, but it's a good reminder, because once your brain is going, it's consuming that information. It's hard to stop. It's just hard to stop. And maybe that's about, it doesn't even have to be negativity or news like that, or social media in that way, but I call it down the rabbit hole. We get lost down the rabbit hole, and when we come out, it's been an hour, hour and a half, 20 minutes, and then that time is gone. A fourth tip I have for you is block websites or block information on your firewall or on your phone that you don't want to consume, but you know that you're really, it's a weak point for you. So for some people, that's celebrity news. For other people, that's political news. For other people, it's news about a certain business or entity or the stock market. If that's something that becomes all-consuming for you, then it's probably a good idea to set blocks in place so that way you can't look. And then, you may want to, but then you go to that website and it's blocked. My husband did this at one point for a topic that he just really was like, I know I need to get a handle on this, but I just am constantly looking at news. I'm constantly looking at data for this. So on our firewall, he put up blocked. I don't know how you do it exactly. If you want to know, send me an email and I'll send you a link on how to do that. Nicole@liftyourfuture.com. And I can send you a link how to do that, but you block it on your firewall so none of the computers, even your phone when you're on your Wi-Fi, will not pull up that website. And that was something he had to do to kind of like basically wean himself off of it. And then the fifth one that I have for you is assess what you're consuming. What did I consume? Go back through your browser history. Take a log of it. What am I consuming and the why behind it? Sometimes we do that to avoid something. Sometimes we're doing that so we don't have to deal with something else. We use it as a distraction. We use it to avoid our lives to some capacity. So taking an inventory of that is the first step to really looking at it, and then assess, what do I have control over? What do I have control over? And then make a plan for that. What don't I have control over? And put those inventories, put those websites or those apps or whatever it is in two different categories. Is this serving me? Is this adding value to my life? Is this helping me get to where I want to be? Or is this a distraction or a way that I'm avoiding doing something that I should be doing otherwise? So those are my 5 tips for you. And I really hope that you can take an inventory of this, because noticing the impact that the news has on you, that social media may have on you, that politics may have on you, can really be draining. And subconsciously, then you're on automatic pilot and letting those emotional responses dictate how your day goes. And I want you to be in control of your day and in control of your mindset. And so by being in control of your mindset, it's being in control of what you're consuming. So I hope that was valuable information for you today. I think it's an important topic to talk about. I'll have an episode on positive affirmations and how you talk to yourself, because I think that's equally as important. So I will have an episode coming out shortly about that as well. But today I want to touch more on those negative things and how we can change those things around with those 5 helpful tips. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.